Emily going.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction and good to see you guys online. I know this is our new norm and doing everything online. So thanks for being patient with it all. But as always, you know, today I'm going to share some slides and go through everything. But if there are any questions, whether that's now or it is a little bit later, you know, Sandon's got my details. So please feel free to reach out because I know that sometimes, you know, when we're doing this, it can be a little bit harder and there's not as many opportunities to ask questions. So we're adjusting with everything and let's just see how we go. But I'm just going to share the slides now. Give me 1 second while that just comes up. But I'm glad to hear that some of you have had your dinner because no doubt that's a thing that we're going to go through tonight, but all about that organisation and preparation as well. So just give me a second. It's just being a little bit silly here. It's not letting me share. Give me 1 second. And then it should let me do it. There we go.
You needing to share your screen, Emily? She's froze.
Yeah, it looks like she's frozen.
We've lost Emily.
Hopefully she comes back.
She just messaged me, just quit. So she's having a few technical issues here. She's trying to get back on now. The beauty of technology.
It's wonderful when it works, isn't it?
If you guys have your dinner, you can eat your dinner while you're online. Maybe just turn your cameras off.
Did you want me to jump in while we're waiting for Em, or do you want to wait for Em a few more minutes first, Sandon?
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Let's give her a minute here, and then if not, you get going.
Sure.
She can work it out. Yeah, why don't you just go ahead and start, and then hopefully Emily can sort her problem out.
Sure, cool. I've just shared my screen. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, all good.
Excellent, great. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Emma. I am the psychologist that works with Tennis Australia and Tennis SA specifically. And so we are doing a whole series of workshops once a term. And tonight we're going to talk about performance consistency and how that relates to our routines that we develop. So routines are really, really important in that it's about consistency. So most of us are pretty aware that consistency in our performance is really, really important. And I can't tell you how many times athletes come in and to talk to me and go, well, I'm really great some days and then I'm really not great other days. And so it is about how do we maintain a really nice consistency in our performance. And we know that that matters a lot. But the problem is with tennis is that it's pretty unpredictable. So predictability is really not part of a tennis match or a tournament. Things happen around us all the time. There are so many distractions at a tournament and during a match, and they all can sometimes distract us from being focused and being ready to perform. And even within a match, we can have rain delays, we can have medical breaks, we can have lots of things that will sort of disrupt our flow a little bit. And many of these distractions are things that we have very little control over, and that they can really interrupt our ability to perform and interrupt our consistency. So some of the uncontrollable things that might distract us during a match might be things like who's watching us, might be the weather, it's particularly windy or particularly hot. That might be the other competitors and their performance. So thinking, oh gosh, I'm coming up against that person and they're really good. I've never beaten them before. Or, oh, I'm coming up against this person. I should be able to really easily beat them. And those sorts of things can be quite distracting for us as well. We can occasionally have some equipment malfunctions, you lose a shoe or something like that. These things can happen sometimes. Sometimes we're worried about what's going on in our external environment with our own team, with our coaches and our teammates. We might sometimes get distracted by calls that are made by the lines people or the umpire. Although if you're umpiring your own matches, sometimes it's about getting distracted by the calls that your opponent is making. Your performance environment or the venue, the nature of the event. Sometimes, going to those bigger tournaments, it's a little bit overwhelming and a bit of a distraction for us. Injury can be a distraction. Nerves and worry can be something that can get in our way of being able to be consistent. Worrying about the future, worrying about the result of the match or the outcome, worrying about what's happened in the past. So what happened last point, and oh gosh, I'm still worried about that error that I made last point, rather than refocusing on the current point. All of these distractions can really pull us away from performing consistently. And when we focus on the things we can't control, we often start to feel quite anxious or on edge or not quite focused. And so the really, really important thing is that we focus on the things that we can control. And learning to focus on the things that we can control gives us this sense of comfort, confidence, and predictability. So what can we control? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? So the controllable things that we can really put our energy and effort into are basically what we choose to focus on and the actions we choose to take. And I break that down into 4 different areas. So we can really control our attitude that we take onto the court. We can control our preparation. We can control our process, which is just things like our match plan and making sure we're executing our shots as much as possible, although mistakes are always a part of it, and controlling our effort and how hard we work at these things. Now, what we're going to do today is, and when we focus on those things that we can control, we often feel more in control, more confident, and more positive about our performances. So when we're performing, we really, really want to hit in on the 3 C's of performance. So you would have seen my last presentation, hopefully, around our optimal arousal, optimal level of performance, and knowing that we need to have some anxiety or some pressure on us in order to perform well. We've got this nice U there. And really the 3 C's of this is around, we want to feel like we're in control, we want to feel comfortable, and we want to feel confident. And that's where our routine really, really plays a role. So we're really going to nail down on this consistent preparation, because consistent preparation equals consistent results. So it's all about our routine. When we are consistent with how we set ourselves up to do something, then we're consistent with our performance, or at least more consistent. And Emily will also speak about this from a nutrition point of view, but the more routines we are, it really does make us more able to focus in on the appropriate things and be prepared. So our routines are about creating our performance bubble. So a routine is a consistent set of things that we do or say to ourselves before you compete or perform, and after you compete and perform as well. So this is about both your training and in your competition. And a clear routine helps us be competitive, stay in the present and block out these distractions that we talked about, helps us focus on the relevant information and the things that we can control, like we just spoke about. And it can help us feel calm, relaxed, and in control of our performance, and it'll improve our performance consistency. And we need to make sure that we include both our physical and our mental steps in our preparation to make sure that our mind and our body are aligned and ready to go. And it's like I said, it's about creating this performance bubble so that I'm in my bubble and I'm ready to perform. I'm focused and ready to go. And things that are not relevant right now are on the outside of my bubble, but I can stay focused. Again, we want to be making sure that we're getting the 3 C's, the controllability, the comfort, and the confidence. So routines can be present throughout the entire space in which we play tennis. This can be our pre-match or pre-training routine, so the set of things that we do to assist us to be ready to compete or even to train. Then we can have a pre-point routine, so actions that help us prepare for each point, help us refocus after errors and between points. And then we've also got our post-match routines. So these are stuff around our routines around recovery and being able to prepare us for our next performance. So I'm going to really quickly delve into each of these areas. So the pre-match routine is about a set of actions that you go through to assist you in being ready to compete. So things you do in the lead up to the match or the race, or in this case, your match. It's what you do before you compete. And it might start the night before, and it might just start the morning of. It might start the night before with your nutrition, what meal you have before a match, and how much sleep you get the night before a match. That might be the night before element. And then the morning of competition. So the key elements to a pre-match routine is to be in control of ourselves, have our body and our mind in the right place, be focused, have our nerves managed, and have a clear process, a clear plan for what we want to do for the match. And that's going to include a whole bunch of things such as your nutrition, your sleep, your goal setting, your visualization, all the things that you can do to get yourself in the right place to perform. And then, of course, we're going to make sure that we prepare the body and activate our muscles. So go through a good warm-up and activation and stretching and all that dynamic stuff. Then we're going to warm up our skills. So making sure that we are practicing our tennis shots. And then we're going to practice our competition. So play a point or two, not at the same intensity that you'd play if you were in an actual match, but just practice sort of getting your head set in that competition mindset. So we're going to talk more specifically about the being in control of ourselves and getting our mind in the right place, that first step that we want to do. Because you have really wonderful people around you to help you work out the body, the skill, and the competition stuff. That's what Sandon and Matt are going to help you out with. And Emily and I are going to talk about the body and the mind. So we really need to start funneling our focus. We need to think about what things do I need to do to feel physically prepared. This means things like being practical, having your bag packed so you don't forget anything. So having all of your rackets, having your sweatbands, having your water bottles, having any snacks packed, having all of that practical stuff done. But then, of course, making sure that you are thinking about warming up and making sure you've chatted with your coach about your plan for that match. All of these really practical and physical things that we need to do. But then we also need to think about, what do I need to do to feel mentally prepared to perform so that I'm focused and feeling confident going into a match? And so a good routine includes both these physical and these mental preparation. When we talk about mental, we're talking about our thoughts and our focus. So some physical things, some actions that might be really important will be eating and drinking, which Emily will, of course, talk to you about. Being prepared for your opponent. So having a bit of a plan in your mind, if you've played them before, thinking about what kind of plans, plan A and B you could have. Or if you haven't played them before, thinking about what are your strengths and how are you going to play to your strengths while you're on the court today. Being on time, being relaxed, so not spending the whole lead up to the match thinking about the match, having some time to relax and think about other things and distract yourself and then focus in when the time is right. So some people will want to talk and joke around and others will want to be quieter, and that's perfectly fine. Whatever your routine is fine. You want to make sure you've done all your activation work, your stretching, your strapping, physically warm up. You want to make sure you've gotten into your kit correctly, gone to the toilet, you've had a chat with your coach, you're organized, you've done the coin toss, been logical, get all your logistical things out, and maybe you want to take some nice slow centering breaths to clear your mind and allow the execution to flow. But then when we're talking about our mindset, we then need to think about simplifying things so that we can limit our focus, really narrow our attentional spotlight onto the things that are really, really important. Now, we talked in previous sessions about finding that optimal level of arousal, and we talked about using our breathing as a really cool way to do that. And that's one strategy we could absolutely use. We could also make sure that we have some goals set for the match. And when I say goals, I don't mean win. Everyone wants to win. I mean, what are some of the things that you really want to do in the match that are going to help you perform well? What's my plan A? What's my plan B? You might want to use some imagery and visualization to help prepare you to mentally rehearse what you're doing, so that you feel like you have already thought about it and felt really in control of that. You might want to do some relaxation, so some breathing, listen to some music, do a progressive muscle relaxation. You want to make sure your self-talk is where you want your self-talk to be. And you want to be able to focus on those controllables, the things that you're in control of. So your attitude, your preparation, your process, and your effort. And you might want to get yourself energized. You might need to get yourself pumped up for a match, particularly if you've been playing a tournament over a few days. By the end of the tournament, you might be starting to feel a bit fatigued, and you actually need to energize yourself. And that can be achieved through a high intensity warm up, or through our self-talk, or through our goal setting. So it's really important to remember, though, that this is completely individual. Your pre-match routine is 100% individual, but it is important that you do it consistently the same. So Sandra will have emailed out a little booklet that I've put together for you. And in that booklet, there is space for you to start thinking about what your pre-match routine might look like. Thinking about all the things that you like to do to feel physically and mentally prepared, and sort of planning that out. The idea isn't that it becomes a rigid plan where you have to stick with every single step at every single moment every time, but it's a good idea to have a bit of an idea in your head about what things do I need to get done, and when would I like to have them done, with some flexibility around that. And then be super consistent, making sure that every time we're going to step out onto the court for a match, that we're doing that routine. So there's some pretty cool examples out in the world. So Rafael Nadal, for example, he likes to be on court and warming up for an hour before his match. He's very detailed in his routine, very planned out, and executes things really precisely. He likes to do things like take a cold shower, listen to some music, get his strapping done, do some explosive footwork drills, redo the grips on his racket, takes lots of toilet breaks. He talks a lot about needing nervous peas. Whereas Roger Federer, he's quite short and simple, and he really just does the night before a brief talk about the strategy for the match, has a good sleep, wakes up, has his treatment, then warms up on court, eats, has a quick brief strategy reminder, and gets on court. And that's as complicated as his is. Serena Williams, she warms up a long time before a match, tries to spend some time doing something relaxing and peaceful, has chats with her coach, listens to music, and always tapes her ankles. Naomi Osaka, I won't get my words tangled up there. She has a bit of a ritual around putting on her sunscreen, tying her hair up, listening to one song. And if she wins, she listens to that same song before every match in a tournament. And one thing that she really does is really listens to the music. She likes to put her headphones on, push play, get in the zone, and visualize her game plan. She also has a bit of a routine with her breakfast. She likes to have salmon for breakfast and starts hydrating as soon as possible. Lots of other examples here. Anna Mears, she just talks about the importance of her routine. Her ritual is very repetitive because I find peace and calm in the normality of routine, especially in an environment that can amp up the nerves and the adrenaline in the body. If I get through the same routine, I can have some comfort in that routine, and it helps keep me sane. So this is what routines can do for you. They can help you manage all of that adrenaline and excitement and the nerves that can crop up when you're about to compete. Wayne Rooney, he's quite clear on his routines as well. He likes to get a good night's sleep. He'll visualize his play. He'll make sure he has his meals that are really that are about fueling him to perform. He has some routines. He likes to be on the bike for about 15 minutes, then do some stretching, and then do some relaxing. He's not strict with that. He's a little bit more flexible with that. He's not superstitious, but he really stays focused and concentrates and gets relaxed. Listens to some music, and in the final hour, he'll have an energy drink. He'll go out for warm up. 10 minutes before the game starts, he puts his shirt on, his shin pads, and then kick off. And so he talks about making sure that he's got a really nice structure around his day before a match, but there is flexibility within that. And he likes to take his mind off things by playing a computer game. Steph Elliott is a Great Britain hockey player. She's very organised the night before, makes sure her bag is packed. She wakes up around the same time each day. She has a good breakfast. She visualises again her play. She gets into the change room and then she laughs and chills out with her teammates, takes her mind off the game. But then when she goes out for warm-up, she gets into this running, dynamic stretching, play some small-sided gameplay and some set play prep. So she really starts to focus in when she does that. So that's your pre-match routine. And as I said, there's room in the handout that I've sent for Sandon to share for you where you can start to develop your own. So do take your time to do that, and do make sure you chat about it with your coaches as well, because they can really help you understand what it is that they've seen that might help you perform, and they can give insight as to what other athletes have done and what they've done themselves. So the next part is our pre-point routine, which is a list of actions that you go through to prepare yourself and focus yourself for each point. They're about creating high level of performance on your repetitive self-paced tasks, such as serving. And it really helps with our focus, our confidence, and our trust in our skills, and it allows us to trust our bodies and execute automatically. So a good pre-point routine is about readying the body and focusing the mind. It's a set of habits that we do, and it's about helping us with the execution of our skills. And again, it's really, really personal, and it's about making you feel comfortable, confident, and excited and ready to go. But again, it doesn't need to be super rigid. It can be flexible as long as you feel prepared. So an example of a rigid pre-serve routine or a pre-point routine is Nadal. So I'm sure you've watched Nadal do his wiping of his forehead and his brow and push his hair behind his ears, pull out his undies. He's very rigid with his routine. He goes through the same thing over and over again. And it really helps his performance. He's consistent. However, if he gets cut short in his routine, it can also fluster him. So it's really important that we do have some flexibility in that routine so that we're not really stretching it out and meaning that if we don't finish it, it does interrupt us. But it is important that we do have some structure. So another example here is Maria Sharapova. So there with Maria, you can see that she's walked to the back of the court, she's played with her racket strings, got them nice, she's gone back to the line, she's bounced the ball a couple of times, then she's looked over the net, focused on where she wants to serve, and then taken her deliberate bounces and going through her serving motion. So when we develop a pre-point routine, we want to think about both our thoughts and our actions. A good routine will have the same set of thoughts and the same set of actions that you go through, because this needs to be about our physical and our mental readiness to play the point. And in my experience, many of us are really good at developing physical routines, but do really struggle with the mental routines. We're not sure what we need to focus on, or we're not sure about what we want to be saying to ourselves. But we do need to be consistent with that, both physically and mentally. Again, it's about making sure that we feel in control, feel comfortable, and feel confident to execute. So a pre-point routine will be about preparing our body and our mind to perform, so getting into that right position. So if you're thinking about a pre-receive routine, it might be getting to the point where you want to stand and receive the ball, getting nice and low and balanced with your weight forward, ready to be able to receive the ball and move in either direction. So it might be readying yourself to perform. You might image yourself taking the serve or getting a great receive, or a great return, sorry, I should say, and with the correct technique and seeing yourself be successful. So you might want to visualize yourself either serving or getting that great return. You then need to focus, so direct your mental spotlight onto one thing that's going to be helpful. So maybe it's just looking over the net, focusing exactly where you want to serve and saying a cue for your serve, like smooth serve or something like that, whatever works for you. And then you just want to execute. You don't need to overthink the execution. You just allow it to happen because you've actually done all the work and you're readying, imaging, and focusing. So a pre-serve routine might look like going to the back of the court, using your towel, just wiping your sweat away and collecting your balls. Then your mental step might be react to the last point, but then let it go. Last point is done. You might address the line, look at the spot where you want the ball to land, decide what serve you're going to do, and image yourself being successful. Then you'll get ready to serve, maybe bounce the ball twice, relax your arms and shoulders, say your cue in your head, such as smooth and follow through, and then do your ball toss and serve, and have that really simple focus, just focusing on the serve and nothing else, just allowing it to happen. That's an example. And again, your routine will be really individual to you. So there's space in the handout for you to think about what your routine for your pre-serve or your pre-receive routine might look like. And again, chat with your coaches about that. Don't make it too complicated. It should be really simple. But if you have made an error on your last point, it can be really hard. So it's okay to need to have a little bit of time to react to that. Say, damn, got it wrong. But then reflect, fix the error you made, maybe practice the shot that you meant to play or remind yourself of what to do next time. You'll often see the players do that if they've missed a really easy shot, or just, that short one over the net or something like that. They'll actually practice that and sort of shadow the action so that next time they do it correctly. Reflection is not the time to beat yourself up. It's not the time to go, this is terrible. Why am I playing so badly? But it's time to give yourself closure to move on from the point. So just really quickly go, I'm going to fix that. Then we've got to relax. Let it go, walk to the back of the court to reset, wipe your face with the towel and wipe away the mistake, or relax and adjust your grip, spin the racket in your hand, anything that's going to help you relax and let that go. And then refocus by using your pre-serve, pre-receive routine. So that same routine that you would have just developed, that can come back in there again as well. And then finally, we want to think about our post-match routine. So this is about optimizing our recovery, both physically and mentally. We're usually pretty emotional straight after a match, win or loss. So if we win, we're usually on this huge high and get really excited and happy, maybe relieved. But if we've lost, we're going to feel disappointment. We might be a bit annoyed by it or a bit frustrated, and that's okay, but we need to recover from these things. So physically, we want to make sure that we cool down and do our active recovery, stretching, rolling, ice bath, physio massage, eat, hydrate, all of those things that Emily and Matt can help you out with on the physicality side of it. But we also want to mentally recover as well. So you need to review the match and review it in the light of the goals that you set for yourself beforehand. It's not about the outcome. It's about thinking about, how did I perform today? Not did I win or lose? We know that. It's how did I perform? Did I perform well and I was just outplayed? Or are there things in my performance that I'd like to improve? So trying to recognize at least 2 things you did well and 1 thing you learned or 1 thing in your game that you could improve and how you might improve that. I recommend waiting at least an hour after you finish your match, because trying to evaluate your performance immediately after your match will mean that you'll often just be reacting to the emotion of it all. And sometimes it might even be better to do that match review the next day. Journaling can be a really, really wonderful way to mentally switch off from a match, just keeping a bit of a journal, recording your experiences and venting any emotions. You also need to psychologically recover, so maybe do something that'll give you a positive distraction. So watch a movie, do some study, play a video game, connect with a friend, just anything that'll help you mentally switch off from the match. You might want to do some meditation. and not relevant right now, but for the pros, they actually need to think about where their post-match press conference will fit in their post-match routine, because they want to make sure that they are able to go out and present a professional face at that conference. And so this is about preparing you to perform for your next effort, your next training, or your next match. And you can try different routines in your practice matches and find out what works for you. The last thing that's really important for this stuff is sleep. Sleep is one of the best things that we can do to recover physically and mentally. Sleep is as important part of our preparation in order to be prepared to perform, so making sure we're rested to take the court. But then it's really important for our recovery, because it helps us restore our muscles, overcome our fatigue, and it also helps our brain recover and clears the mind. It helps us process and form new long-term memories, and therefore and our emotions. It helps us process our emotions as well. And so it does give us a new perspective on things after we've slept on it. So some really important tips for getting a good night's sleep is being regular with your sleep pattern. So going to bed and waking up at the same time each day. Making sure you have a bit of a bedtime routine designed to prepare the body for sleep. So I've put mine in here. Mine is put my PJs on, clean my teeth, say goodnight to my loved ones. I like to read a book, but some people like to just do some nice relaxing exercise and then turn out the light and go to sleep. You want to make your sleep environment really nice. You want your room to be cool, dark, quiet, and comfortable. It can also really help to have a warm shower or bath before bed, because that can really relax us. This one's the hardest one for many of us. It's turning off our electronic devices at least 30 minutes before bed, because if we're looking at our screens too close to bedtime, all the light that comes out of the screen is actually waking our brain up. So we want to turn those off at least 30 minutes before. We want to avoid eating or drinking anything that has caffeine or other stimulants in it. So we probably want to avoid things like Coke or coffee at night. And if you're in bed longer than 20 minutes before falling asleep, get up and don't go back to bed until you're sleepy. We don't want our brain to think it's okay to be awake in bed. We want to train our brain and our body that bed is for sleeping. We want to make sure that we have low light before bedtime. So again, we're not getting too much light in our brain and tricking our brain into thinking it's wake up time. And when we're traveling, some really great tips there is to take your own pillow, because often our first night in an unfamiliar place feels a bit odd and we don't sleep very well. So having your own pillow really gives you that nice sense of comfort so that we can feel like we can drop off to sleep. It's always important to give ourselves time to adjust to a new time zone. If you're playing in WA, for example, you're a couple of hours behind. So it's important to adjust to that. And if you're going overseas in the future, then one day when we can again, it's important to give yourself that time to adjust to the new time zone. Remember, it's actually harder to fly east because of our body clock. And so just adjusting your watch to the new time zone before you leave and get into routine quickly is really important. And remembering to stretch and drink lots of water on the plane as well. Last point here is that these routines are about practice. So the more you do them, the more you link them with performance, whether this is in training, competition, the more effective they become. So set your routine up and stick to it. Be consistent every time. It will evolve. The routine you set for yourself now won't be the routine you have in 10 years' time. But let's be conscious with being consistent with it and let it evolve as things come up. So quick little summary there. Tennis is unpredictable. In order to perform consistently, we need to prepare consistently, and that's where our routines are really, really helpful. It's about creating this performance bubble with our 3 C's: controllability, comfort, and confidence. And we can use routines to prepare for the match. We can use routines within a match and post-match. They help us to make sure that we're physically and mentally prepared. Mental skills are things like imagery, breathing, goal setting, self-talk, music. They're incredibly individual, need to be well practiced. So start developing your routines today, and remember, be consistent. If there are questions, then again, Sandon has my contact details, so you're more than welcome to reach out. And if there was any questions that were burning that you immediately wanted to ask, then absolutely fire away. If not, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll pass over to Emily.
Awesome.
Thanks, Emma.
Sorry, Em. Yeah, thanks, Emma. That was awesome. Yeah, hopefully with Emily, we'll get a little bit on nutrition side of things. But really awesome presentation, Em. And just so that all you guys know, I did send out what Em was talking to in regards to the email before we went on, and that just had a bit of a workbook that you could run through a little bit. And also, if you have any questions for Em in regards to that presentation, we'll put you in touch with her. So I'll pass it over to Emily, and hopefully second time lucky here.
Thanks, Sand, and fingers crossed. I just want to confirm, can you see the screen of my presentation now?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm not sure what happened, but you know what? That's the joys of technology, and the unpredictability of tennis also happens with technology. So thanks everyone for being patient, but here we are, and we can get straight into it and get going. So basically with nutrition, this is a key element that is a part of your tennis performance. And the biggest thing I want to highlight is that if you are putting consistent efforts and starting to develop routines around your nutrition, this is a key thing that's going to separate you from the average person and definitely take you into the realm of being that more elite tennis player. So what we want to focus on is developing these nutrition routines. And I'm going to give you a good insight into some key points that you want to have a look at around your trainings and of course around your tournaments. The first thing we want to focus on when it comes to your nutrition is planning ahead. One of those things with nutrition is that you can't just expect it to happen and it to be ready as is. So it's something that does require a little bit of thought, and as part of that, it might involve some discussion with your parents or with other family members around shopping, around meals and things like that. So I really encourage you to speak with whoever does the food shopping and whoever does the cooking, so you guys can get to know each other's schedules and work out the types of meals that you want to have, or maybe there are particular snacks or things like that that you do want to include as part of the shopping list. So first things first is you need to know your schedule and actually know exactly what that looks like, and start to look and identify the pressure points in the week. So times where things are quite busy, maybe you're from training to, or maybe you're rushing from school to training, or anywhere in between. So I like to identify the pressure points and find times when maybe getting your nutrition in, or maybe where your routine is under a little bit under the pump a little bit. So then that way we can be as calm as possible and things can basically go to plan as much as we'd like. And when it does come to tournaments, we want to be as organized as you can possibly be. There are a lot of things that we can't control, like game times and I guess conditions, whether it's hot or whether it's a freezing cold day, but try and be as organized as you can. So if you know that you are playing in hot conditions, making sure that you're packing more water, you've got extra electrolytes, you've got your cooling towels and maybe even some iced water and those types of things. And what we want to do is start to plan as soon as we can. So if you know when you're playing, start to work that out the night before, whether that's the morning of, but be as organized as you can so that you're not arriving there without any clue and just hoping that you'll stumble upon the right thing. Only rely on what you have and don't assume there'll be other options. And that's where the organization and the planning comes in. A lot of the time people will rely on things like the cafeteria or shops nearby, but we can't always be sure that firstly you can access them. Your breaks might not be as long as what you originally thought, and secondly you might also find that they don't actually have the options that you want. So my best advice is to actually pack everything you need and a little bit more so that you can have that consistent routine with your nutrition. And of course, I'm going to go through some of those examples of what they look like. But use this time to trial. So, day to day, before your trainings and those types of things, use that as an opportunity to trial and see what things work and also learn what things don't, so that when it does come to competition, you've got a nice routine so that you're all ready to go and you can have confidence in what you're doing when it does come to match day. I love this quote, and it's something that I share often. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. And this is key with your routine. Obviously, we want to work out what works well for you, but once we know that routine, it's something that we want to control and do consistently as possible. When I think about tennis, like we said, there's lots of uncontrollables, but what we want to do is control your controllables. And nutrition is a big one that we can control and make you feel comfortable and confident in the lead up to games and competitions. So when I talk about consistency, it's about doing the things that matter most regularly. And sometimes it can be confusing as to what actually matters to you. So I like to use this example of your big rocks, which are your big main things that are very important, your pebbles, which are, you know, somewhere in between, and then your sand. So these are the small things that kind of fit between the cracks. What we want to focus on is your big rocks. This represents the stuff that's most necessary to your performance. And these are the key things that we want to focus on today. So this is fueling for your trainings, recovery, regular and good quality meals, sleep, which Em talked about earlier, and hydration. Your pebbles, so these are extra help with some advantage, but aren't totally necessary. So this could be getting a little bit complicated with your nutrition, periodizing it, training low, those types of things. And then you get your sand, which I like to call your icing on your cake or the cherry on top. It can be useful, but it's not crucial to your performance. So these could be examples like vitamins and minerals, supplements, protein powders, those types of things. So yes, they can be of some benefit, but what I tend to find with a lot of athletes, and actually in the general population as well, is that people just go straight to the things that don't really matter, those sand kind of elements, and then they spend all their time focusing on that they're failing to look at their daily basics that have the biggest impact and will make the biggest benefit to your routine. So let's tease this out a little bit more. And when we're thinking about that consistency of those important things, we really want to be organized. So set yourself up to succeed. Like we said, control your controllables. Think about your training schedule. Does this fit within your jar, and complement your nutrition to your schedule? So what are the important things within your week, and where are the opportunities where we can fuel and recover and get the most out of your training program, which will then, of course, lead to good performance when it comes to match day. So match your fuel to the demands of training and to assist recovery, and have suitable packed options and snacks. So that's where that organisation comes in, making sure that you're packing for the day. So if you are on the go and you're going straight from training on the court straight to school, we want to make sure that you've got packed options so that you can recover from training, but then for the day ahead at school. So let's get to the good stuff and talk about some food options. So when we're talking about a meal before training or a match, we really want, like we said, we don't want this to be a new thing. So use your training as an example or an opportunity to practice and fine tune what this meal looks like. So with that meal, we want to focus on timing. And when we're thinking about a good quality meal, we want that to be around 3 to 4 hours beforehand. And this is something that's going to be different with everyone. Everyone's got their individuality with their nutrition. So I'd recommend, particularly if you're new to it or if you're feeling particularly nervous, that the longer amount of time, so more towards the 4 hours, is going to be better to allow enough time for digestion. And also just to make sure that your gut is feeling quite comfortable and ready to go. So when we're thinking about that meal, we're thinking protein, quality carbohydrate, and colour. So plenty of different options that you can go with there, but we all want it to be familiar when it comes to match day, making sure that we're not trying anything new on the day. So some examples could include like a chicken and salad sandwich. You could do some sushi with the protein filling. You could do a burrito or Mexican bowls, or if it is in the morning, you could do yogurt, muesli, and some fruit. You could even do an omelette with some eggs for the protein on a piece of grainy toast, and plenty of colour coming from something like spinach, mushrooms, or capsicums. So they're the three things we want to think about: protein, carbohydrate, and colour, and we want to have that meal around 3 to 4 hours before. Then in regards to the snack, this is going to be somewhere between 1 to 2 hours before the game, and this will really depend on how you're feeling and what you are eating. So the more complex something is, then the longer amount of time you'd want to allow it to digest. But when we're thinking about the type of snack, we're thinking we want it to be simple, we want it to be light, and we want it to be carbohydrate based. So some really good examples could include some fruit. You could even do a muesli bar. If you're wanting something a little bit more substantial, you could do muesli and a little bit of yogurt. So all of those things are going to be great. Even rice cakes or rice crackers can be a really good option. So we want to work out what your snack is and get your timing quite right. And I guess right in the lead up, just before the match, something like some lollies or something that's going to give you that sugar hit's really good, just to get you in the zone and make sure that that sugar or that carbohydrate energy is circulating through the blood and ready to go. Obviously, with the lollies, we don't want to be having them every single training session, only the really key important ones. And of course, around matches, that's fine. But it's really important that we're not having that too frequently. So don't let that one fall into your routine too consistently. That's more part of your match day routine. The last is hydration, and this is often one that a lot of athletes forget. And this is what starts earlier before a match, and something that takes a little bit more time. So we want to be starting that 24 hours before a match rather than just before. And this is a big mistake a lot of athletes make, because they get to the match and they're like, oh my goodness, I haven't had enough hydration. I'm feeling dehydrated. It's actually hot. Oh, I'm sweating more than what I thought. And then they guzzle down heaps of water. And then you know it. And I think it's happened to a few of us before, but you're running around and you can get a stitch and you can feel quite uncomfortable in the stomach. So that's where that organisation and preparation before the match and before trainings is so, so key. And particularly in summer, in the warm weather, that's where we want to be really on top of our hydration and making sure that we're going into trainings hydrated, and then replacing any fluid that is lost throughout the game so that we're ready to go all over again. So what to have in the tennis bag, and this comes down to that organisation and making sure that you've got what you need there. So like I mentioned before, don't rely on the cafes at the courts. It's really important that you're packing all the necessary items so you've got them there ready to go. Think about how long your day will be. If you're just playing one match, you're not going to need as many things. Whereas if you've got a big day of tennis and you've got singles, doubles, and maybe even another match after that, making sure that you're packing plenty of things that are portable and non-perishable as well. In regards to the food that you know you're going to eat, like your pre-game and your post-game, that doesn't have to be non-perishable. Just making sure that you're storing it appropriately. And if it is a warm day, making sure that you've got the insulated lunchbox and you've got cooler packs in there, so that your food is staying, within a safe level, and it's also at a temperature that's going to be enjoyable. The non-perishable foods are what I call your emergency snacks. So these can be things like dried fruit, maybe some nuts and muesli bar. These are the things that can almost remain in your tennis bag all the time. So that, let's say things go a little bit longer, or let's say you're at the courts, or some mum or dad might be a little bit late to pick you up. You've got these options so that you can start your recovery as soon as possible, or you can even keep on going and refuel if things are going a little bit longer. And fluids are also important to pack. Obviously, at most of the courts, you will have access to a water fountain, but making sure you've got the bottle. But I'd recommend trying to bring as much as possible, just in case, for example, the tap isn't working, or I know with COVID, sometimes they do switch off taps. So making sure that you've got everything there. And then thinking about your fluids and what type of fluids. Is it just going to be water? Is it maybe going to be an electrolyte drink? Is it going to be a sports drink? And the other thing to think about is the temperature of it. So making sure that you're packing things, or making sure that the fluid is the temperature that you like. Because if it's hot and it's a hot day, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to drink very much of it. So I'm wanting icy water so that I can get it down easily, and it is quite enjoyable. So what to take on court. So this is all part of your routine. And what we also want to start thinking about is that at the change of ends, we want to start developing what this routine looks like. And this is where practice comes in. And when you're doing some match simulation in training sessions, this is a really good opportunity to fine tune what that looks like. So when we're thinking about what we're using to refuel during a game, we want that to be carbohydrate. We know that that's the main source of fuel we use when we exercise. So we want that carbohydrate-based snacks to be there by your side when you do change ends. So some great options could be bananas, muesli bars, or simple sandwiches with jam or honey that are just easy to nibble at. You can also work with some things like some sports gels as well, just making sure that they're appropriate and they've been tested. So if there are any questions about those kind of supplements, those types of things can be necessary or can be a good option or a tool in the toolbox. But these food options like bananas, muesli bars, rice crackers, rice cakes, or those simple sandwiches are really good options. The fluid choices, water, sports drinks, electrolyte drinks like we spoke about earlier, and just a reminder about the temperature of them and making sure you've got good water bottles or good cooling or ice packs to keep them the right temperature and not get too hot. So let's start to think about your in-between routines, so between games or after trainings where we're starting to think about recovery. We're wanting to think about 3 important things, and that's the carbohydrate, protein, and of course, hydration. In regards to carbohydrates, some options that you could include would be breads, pastas, rice, fruit, or even dried fruit. Protein, so chicken, tuna, eggs. You could also do, you could pull this all together and have a sandwich. You could do some pasta with a meat filling. You could even have leftovers. Plenty of different options that you can go with, just making sure that you're packing them there. Then comes the hydration element, and we can actually bundle that all together and have an up and go, or like a Sustagen Sport, or like a milk-based drink, or even just milk on its own. But they're a really good option that you can have after a game to make sure that you're starting that recovery. And I'd recommend bringing this with you, because sometimes we think, oh, I'll just have it when I get home. But we also need to think about that travel time and making sure that actually by the time I get home, I could have actually missed that window to recover. And particularly if it's a tournament where we're doing it time and time again, that's really, really important. If I think about Port Adelaide Football Club, this is a key area. So like Emma was mentioning, after a game for them, it can be quite busy and they've got lots of media commitments and things like that. So what I'll actually make for them is a protein shake. And this is made with milk and a protein supplement. You don't necessarily need to use a supplement. Just having a milk-based drink is going to give you that protein and that carbohydrate. Or you could even make a smoothie, or just simply having something like an up and go, which is ready to go, and you could freeze it the night before and then pack it in your tennis bag for later. But with them, because they're so busy after the game and a lot of them do have media commitments, I want to make sure that we're starting that recovery process as soon as possible. So getting in a liquid is a really good way that I can confidently know that we've started that process, so that they're already starting their nutrition recovery and it's not getting compromised. For a lot of them, they don't have their appetite straight away. And for you guys, you might notice that particularly when you've had a really tough match, or particularly when you've worked really, really hard, or it's been a hot conditions and you're feeling quite exhausted. So I know for them, it often takes a while, maybe half an hour before the appetite starts to come in. Some of them are ready to go the moment they walk off the field, but with those types of things, it's really important that we're having some options that are easy to get down, so that we're not compromising recovery with the environment, because of the environment. So things like media commitments or things like your appetite not being there. So I'd recommend always packing a recovery meal, or that could even be a snack, so that you're starting that process. And then if things don't go to plan, maybe the drive home takes a little bit longer, you're not caught short and we're not compromising your recovery or compromising your well-oiled routine. With regards to that, I always put down my favourite snacks here, because I think snacks are really handy to have either at home, so that you can have, when you do get home after trainings or in between, and you can pack these options. And I think these are really good to have to keep you going, because sometimes your main meals or your day you can't really plan out as best as possible, because it could be based on when other people get home from work or school. So I find snacks can be a really good way to keep you going between. So my favourites are high protein yogurt, muesli or a nut bar, veggie sticks with some hummus, fruit smoothies, fresh fruit salads, some air popped popcorn that you can just get from the supermarket or make yourself, nut mixes, or otherwise you can make some homemade bliss balls, cookies or slices. So if anyone needs a recipe, just let me know, because I have got a ton. But these are some great options that you can pack in your bag. Obviously, if you are going for those milk-based things, making sure you're refrigerating them. But plenty of these, like the muesli bars and the nut bars, can be popped in your tennis bag so that they're ready to go. So always have snacks on hand, so that you're never caught short and you're never in that hangry zone where you're just way too hungry to even make a decision, and because you're just not a nice person to be around. But also we could be compromising your fueling and your recovery around your training. So let's have a look at an example day, and look at the different opportunities that we have to fuel and recover. So this is going to be a day where you're hitting a couple of times and then you've got a gym in the afternoon. And I know everyone's routines are a little bit different, but this just gives you an idea as to how you can use different opportunities to fuel and recover. So let's say we're doing a pre-morning, we're having breakfast, and this is going to be a pre-morning opportunity to fuel before you have that hit. So an example could be a bowl of muesli with Greek yogurt and fruit. So we've got our protein, we've got our carbohydrate, and we've got our color. So let's say we're getting up really, really early for this. That's where we want to simplify it. And maybe we're just having some cereal and some milk, or we're just having some yogurt and a muesli bar. We just want to make sure that we are getting that fuel in. But obviously, if we don't have heaps of time, we want to make that a little bit more simplified. Afterwards, we're having a post-hit recovery snack. So that could be a fruit smoothie made with yogurt and berries. So we're getting that protein in. So we're starting that recovery process, but we're also getting in that carbohydrate, because we know that we need to keep on going and be fueled throughout the day. So we've got around lunch, that's going to be our pre-afternoon hit, where we're going to get that fueling in. So something like a chicken and salad sandwich is going to be a really good option, where we've got that protein, carbohydrate, and color. And then when we're having a look at the snack, we've got a quick break in between. It's just going to be something simple. So something like a fruit salad and some whole grain popcorn, so that we can quickly nibble on that and get straight into the gym. After the gym, we really want to recover. It's been a big day, so we want to get in a chicken stir fry with plenty of veggies, all the different colors, and some brown rice, so that we're ticking all of those different boxes. We haven't popped it down there, but making sure that we don't forget hydration and getting in plenty of fluid as well. So when I think about this, and if I think about the port players, their routines are very, very fine-tuned, and they're well rehearsed and well practiced. Day to day, they do have the nuances. So they've got different things that they're going to add. So maybe they're going to have different meals, but they're always going to have the same principles. So they're always going to think protein, carbohydrate, color. So they might not always necessarily have a chicken salad sandwich. I'm not saying that you need to have the same thing day in, day out, but what we want to think about is those key principles. So protein, color, and that carbohydrate. However, when it does come to match day or game day for them, they're very, very consistent. And for a lot of them, they will do the exact same thing, so that they're feeling comfortable and confident when it does come to that game day, because they're controlling their controllables and they're controlling their nutrition. They know what sits in their stomach right, so that they can perform really, really well. Like Emma was saying, there's lots of things that are out of our control. So nutrition is one thing that we can control and feel quite confident with doing that. And of course, the more times we do it, the better we'll get at doing it. So then it just becomes a routine that is well rehearsed, and it's almost like second nature. Okay, so let's pull this all together. The key points that I want for you guys to take from today is plan your eating around your training and your games. So making sure that you're having a look at those pressure points throughout the week where maybe you don't have enough time or things are quite rushed, where you need to be really organized and plan ahead to make sure that you're either fueling or recovering appropriately. So the second point, fuel and recover right. Use different times throughout the day as opportunities to get the most out of your performance, get the most out of the program, get the most out of every single time you hit, and then recover right so that you can do it all over again. Think about your timings and your travel times. So this is around your match. So work back. So when you know roughly what time you will be going on court, start to think back, and then also rely on snacks if things go a little bit longer, just to keep you going. Also think about your travel time. So particularly if you're playing outside of Adelaide, where maybe you've got to rely on public transport, or maybe you're not really confident with, how long things take. That's where those emergency supplies and actually packing everything with you is going to be so important, so that when things don't really go to plan, then you've got those different options, so that you're not compromising your recovery or you're not getting too hungry. Be organized and plan for emergencies. Have those supplies in your bag, in your tennis bag, so that when things don't go to plan, you've got them there ready to go. And don't forget hydration, particularly as we're coming into the warmer months. That's so important. So making sure that you've got plenty of different options, different fluids, water, your electrolyte drinks, maybe even your sports drinks, so that you're mixing up the different tastes in your mouth and you're making sure that you're not getting dehydrated. So that brings it all to the end. I will stop sharing this, but if anyone does have any questions about that, feel free to yell out. Otherwise, they can send them through and I can answer them individually. Do I see a question there? Is that a question from you, Sam? No. Oh, I saw your hand. You're in trouble.
Yeah, thanks, Emily and Em. Just some awesome takeaways from both those presentations, and as I mentioned, I will send out any of that information that you guys with your presentations as well, because I think it'd be great for the kids to have. And those of you that joined us tonight, great initiative. Thanks for jumping on with the session tonight, and hopefully you guys can go get some sleep and have some dinner now. So have a good night. Yeah, and thanks Emily and Em for joining us tonight, and we'll be in touch. But have a good evening.
Great, thanks, Sandon. Thanks for having us, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Good nutrition,
Thank
Harry.
you.
Well done.
Bye.
Thank you.
That was cute. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what happened with the slides. That was a bit stressful for a moment there.
That's all good. I was happy to jump in and get my stuff done, give you the time to get yourself sorted.
Oh, thank you for stepping in. I really appreciate that. It like completely logged me out, and it was like something has gone wrong. I was like, not now, please, not now.
Hey, where
Emily.
are you, Em? Are you in hotel quarantine or anything, or are you at home?
I'm at home. I should be able to be released from. I'm still in self-isolation, but yeah, we were in Melbourne on Friday, but we're free, but we're self-isolating. But we should have been released by now, but maybe it's been maybe by 8:30. So yeah, it's a bit strange. We got tested this morning, and then once everyone's free, like once everyone's got a negative result, so like us Western Bulldogs and all the umpires, then we're allowed, because we're doing it every